and welcome to this final first look exploring session looking at The Gentleman Usher by George Chapman, which we have on the whole been enjoying. Certainly it's structured really nicely. There's lots of really enjoyable scenes. It's doing all sorts of interesting things that we're pulling apart, and it's creating a lot of discussion because there is some difference of opinion about what it's doing and why it's doing and how effective it's doing. But that is many ways to its benefit rather than its detriment. We have just about enough people to get through this session. Towards the end, some people might talk to themselves several times, but we're just going to go with it. It'll be fine. So to find out what happens in the end of Act 4 and Act 5, reading Medice and Strozza is...
Hello, I'm Lynn Freitas. I'm a college composition teacher. I live in the northwestern United States.
Reading Bassiolo, Poggio, and Julio is...
Steve Longstaffe, live in the northwest of England.
Reading Lasso and Cynanche is...
Briony, Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire.
Reading Cortezza and the Doctor is...
Aliki, Chapple, actor and translator in Lancashire.
Reading Alphonso today is...
Alan, based in Suffolk.
And reading Margaret and the Guard is...
Sarah Blake, actor, writer and director based in Germany.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions. I'll also be reading Vincentio today, because, as I say, doubling. So, Act 4, Scene 4, enter Alphonso and Medici.
Why should the humorous boy forsake the chase, as if he took advantage of my absence to some act that my presence would offend?
I warrant you, my lord, 'tis to that end, and I believe he wrongs you in your love. Children, presuming on their parents' kindness, care not what unkind actions they commit against their quiet. And were I as you, I would affright my son from these bold parts and father him as I found his deserts.
I swear I will, and I can prove he aims at any interruption in my love. I'll interrupt his life.
We soon shall see, for I have made Madame Cortezza search with picklocks all the ladies' cabinets about Earl Lasso's house, and if there be traffic of love twixt any one of them, and your suspected son will soon appear in some sign of their amorous merchandise. See where she comes, loaded with gems and papers.
Enter Cortezza.
See, here, my lord, I have robbed all of their caskets. Know you this ring? This carcanet? This chain? Will any of these letters serve your turn?
I know not these things, but come, let me read some of these letters.
Madam, in this deed you deserve highly of my lord the Duke.
Nay, my lord Medici, I think I told you I could do pretty well in these affairs. Oh, these young girls engross up all the love from us, poor beldams. But I hold my hand. I'll ferret all the coney holes of their kindness ere I have done with them.
Passion of death! See, Lord Medici, my traitorous son, hath long joined in the favours of my love. Woe to the womb that bore him, and my care to bring him up to this accursed hour, in which all cares possess my wretched life.
What father would believe he had a son so full of treachery to his innocent state? And yet, my lord, this letter shows no meeting, but a desire to meet.
Yes, my lord, I do suspect they meet. And I believe I know well where, too. I believe I do. And therefore, tell me, does no creature know that you have left the chase thus suddenly and are come hither? Have you not been seen by any of these lovers?
Not by any.
Come then, come follow me. I am persuaded I shall go near to show you their kind hands. Their confidence that you are still a-hunting will make your amorous son that stole from thence bold in his love sports. Come, a fresh chase. I hold this picklock. You shall hunt at view. But what do they think to escape? The old wife's eye is a blue crystal full of sorcery.
If this be true, the traitorous boy shall die.
Dun dun dun. They exit. We're midway through an act, by the way, and the act structure is quite important. So most of this act we've been spending with Strozza with his wound, as well as seeing Vincentio and Margaret wooing themselves actually to each other. There's that love scene which some found lovely and some did not. I thought it was lovely, so there. And and now Alphonso, who we haven't seen for a while. The Duke has been mostly absent for quite a long time, since about Act 2. He's popped in, but he hasn't really done anything. He's been off hunting, and he knows. He knows Medice has suborned Cortezza through alcoholic means, and she's done the rifling of all the coney holes, and has found the letters. Alphonso. We were talking first session. I think Lynn was talking about the question of tone and threat. Was there a meaningful threat level from Alphonso? And it seems like he's going to kill his son. Apparently. So, heavy stuff. I don't know. Do I feel very heavy about this? I'm not sure I do, actually, even though he said it. I still don't really believe it. And Cortezza was quite fun. Thoughts from the room as we're gearing up. Aliki, then Sarah.
I can't but note Cortezza's false feminist consciousness there, right? It's not the fault of the old men who pursue young girls. It's the young girls who are pursued. Okay.
Yes. Sarah.
He's his firstborn son. He's not going to kill him. When does that ever happen?
Does he even have other sons? He might be his only heir.
Oh, yeah, but, the logic of this play is that, they're all Italians, so who knows what they'll do. Them foreign devils. Look, they've all been given these names for a reason. Maybe the playwright's pushing this towards some sort of terrible, bloody tragedy. Could be. Nobody's buying it. Okay. Let us move on into the final scene of Act 4. So Act 4, Scene 5. Enter Lasso, Margaret, Bassiolo going before.
Tell me, I pray you, what strange hopes they are that feed your coy conceits against the Duke, and are preferred before the assured greatness His Highness graciously would make your fortunes.
I have small hopes, my lord, but a desire to make my nuptial choice of one I love. And as I would be loath to impair my state, so I affect not honours that exceed it.
Oh, you are very tempt-rate in your choice, pleading a judgment past your sex and years. But I believe some fancy will be found. The forge of these gay glosses, if it be, I shall decipher what close traitor 'tis that is your agent in your secret plots.
Swoons.
And him for whom you plot, and on you all I will revenge thy disobedience with such severe correction as shall fright all such deluders from the like attempts. But chiefly he shall smart that is your factor.
Oh, me accursed!
Meantime, I'll cut your poor craft short, if faith.
Poor craft indeed that I or any others use for me.
Well, dame, if it be nothing but the jar of your unfitted fancy that procures your wilful coyness to my lord the Duke, no doubt but time and judgment will conform it to such obedience as so great desert proposed to your acceptance doth require. To which end do you counsel her, Bassiolo? Let me see, maid, 'gainst the Duke's return, another tincture set upon your looks than heretofore, for be assured at last thou shalt consent, or else incur my curse. Advise her you, Bassiolo.
Exeunt Lasso.
Ay, my good lord. God's pity, what an errant errant ass was I, to entertain the prince's crafty friendship, whose blood I half suspect a villain gulled me.
Our squire, I think, is startled.
Nay, lady, it is true. You must frame your fancy to the Duke, for I protest I will not be corrupted for all the friends and fortunes in the world to gull my lord that trusts me.
Oh, sir, now you're true too late.
No, lady, not a whit. Slow, you think to make an ass of me. May chance to rise betimes. I know it. I know.
Out, servile coward. Shall a light suspect that hath no slenderest proof of what we do? Infringe the weighty faith that thou hast sworn to thy dear friend the prince, that dotes on thee, and will in pieces cut thee for thy falsehood?
Care not. I'll not hazard my estate for any prince on earth, and I'll disclose the complot to your father, if you yield not to his obedience.
Do, if thou darest, even for thy scraped-up living and thy life. I'll tell my father then how thou didst woo me to love the young prince, and didst force me too to take his letters. I was well inclined, I will be sworn before, to love the duke, but thy vile railing at him made me hate him.
I rail at him?
Aye, marry, did you, sir? And said he was a pattern for a potter, fit to have his picture stamped on a stone jug to keep ale nights in memory of sobriety.
She's a plaguey memory.
I could have loved him else. Nay, I did love him, though I dissembled it to bring him on, and I by this time might have been a duchess. And now I think on better. For revenge, I'll have the duke, and he shall have thy head for thy false wit within it to his love. Now go, and tell my father. Pray be gone.
Why? I will go.
Go, for God's sake, go. Are you here yet?
Now I am resolved.
Bassiolo going.
'Tis bravely done. Farewell. But do you hear me, sir? Take this with you. Besides, the young prince keeps a certain letter you had writ for me. Oh, is that a stage direction or is that a line?
Oh, that's a very good question. I don't know.
Mine, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let me do
writ for
that.
me, which is yeah, I think it is.
Okay, let me do that again. But do you hear, sir? Take this with you besides. The young prince keeps a certain letter you had writ for me, endearing and condoling and mature. And if you should deny things, that, I hope, will stop your impudent mouth. But go your ways. If you can answer all this, why, 'tis well.
Well, lady, if you will assure me here you will refrain to meet with the young prince, I will say nothing.
Good sir, say your worst, for I will meet him, and that presently.
Well, be content, I pray, and leave me out. Meet hereafter as you can yourselves.
No, no, sir, no. 'Tis you must fetch him to me, and you shall fetch him, or I'll do your errand.
What a spite is this? I will resolve to endure the worst. 'Tis but my foolish fear that the plot will be discovered. Oh, the gods! 'Tis the best sport to play with these young dames. I have dissembled, mistress, all this while. Have I not made you in a pretty taking?
Oh, 'tis most good. Thus you may play on me. You cannot be content to make me love a man I hated till you spake for him with such enchanting speeches as no friend could possibly resist. But you must use your villainous wit to drive me from my wits. A plague of that bewitching tongue of yours. Would I had never heard your scurvy words.
Pardon, dear dame, I'll make amends, i' faith. Think you I'll play false with my dear Vince? I swore that sooner Hybla should want bees and Italy bona robas than I, faith, and so they shall. Come, you shall meet, and double meet, in spite of all your foes and dukes that dare maintain them. A plague of all old doters. I disdain them.
Said like a friend. Oh, let me comb my coxcomb.
And exeunt. It's a trap. Yeah, it's yeah, they're gonna meet. That's not a good plan. We know that they're going to be people lying in wait. And everybody seems to know about this this little affair, as it were. Her father seems to know. He doesn't know who's the go-between. I do love Bassiolo's little asides there. Swoons. Cripes. So, yeah. And then Margaret. Oh, doesn't she manipulate him there? Doesn't she work? Oh. I mean, one's got to admire it. That doesn't necessarily admire it, but one has to admire it. If you get what I mean. It's just,
You have
it's
to
not
admire the
admirable
quickness.
behaviour.
Yeah.
Sarah.
You have to admire the quickness.
Mm.
I mean, she's amazing, the way she's thinking on her feet there. But yeah, no, in terms of what it says about her as a human being, it's not that edifying.
Well, I'm not that fussed about them being moral exemplars, so long as they make me laugh. And it made me laugh. So that's I think I'm just chucking any concept of morals out the window for this one. I'm just going with it. Just going with it. Other thoughts, Stephen?
Well, perhaps we've got our answer to the question I think Alan raised the other day, which is about the whole punching down thing. Bassiano is, being played around by these kind of trust fund kids. The situation seems to have got much more complicated, doesn't it? Which takes it out of that, kind of territory, I think, a little bit. That we've got, he's trying to kind of assert his own agency. He's got his own plans. And it's a bit more like it's more like a duel, but a battle of wits, but one of them is unarmed, as it were. So I don't know if that's kind of eased it away a little bit from those concepts, which I sort of felt as well, where we had those big central scenes where he was just being, mocked and ridiculed.
Yeah, I mean, there's also, we've had a raising of the stakes. I mean, she's got to protect herself because it does seem that the Duke's wrath could be really quite severe. And so you're going to throw someone under the bus. Who's it going to be? It's not going to be her. Ruthless so it might be, if the stakes are raised, it does change how we assess people's behaviour to a degree. Not necessarily, but I throw that in. Alan, then Lynn, then Aliki.
Yeah, I must admit, if anybody finds Margaret an admirable character, then they probably need urgent attention. And I'm rather hoping that she gets a comeuppance because she's an evil little bitch, basically.
Lynn?
Well, in addition to what Stephen said about, Bassiolo's, kind of, his character has been complicated a little bit. He's also ready to turn on people he's promised to help as the minute he finds his position in the least bit of danger. So we don't exactly admire his integrity either.
I don't really care whether I admire any of them. I'm just I'm really only interested in the action as it progresses, and these turnarounds are really quite engaging. It may make me a terrible human being, but hey, I can live with it. Aliki, then Sarah.
Well, I mean, audiences enjoy things that they wouldn't enjoy in real life, delight in characters that they wouldn't like to know. But I think it also gives some more justification to what they've done to Bassiolo, because Margaret knows him. She knows what kind of person he is really well. And it felt in that scene like she was picking up on threads that she had laid down in order to save herself with later. And I liked that.
Sarah?
Yes, and also just to pick up on what Aliki just said, but also Steve and Lynn, it's interesting that Lasso actually leaves Bassiolo to advise her. He is the one who he said, he basically has a little shout at his daughter, and then he says to the usher, you advise her, you put her right on this. And that is interesting because I hadn't really, maybe I missed it, but I hadn't really picked up earlier in the play that Bassiolo was such a trusted, ally. Like, I mean, I know he's his usher, he's Lasso's usher, but I hadn't picked up the fact that he was such a trusted servant. The fact that he is the one who he chooses to basically lecture his daughter and advise his daughter on his behalf. That to me suggests a degree of trust and seniority that's been conferred upon him that actually then does balance out that whole punching down thing, because ultimately, you know, yes, he's a servant, but he's also a man, and he's a trusted retainer, and he's someone who Lasso has actually told to advise her. So therefore, if Bassiolo goes back to her father and said, she said this, she did this, there's then an inference there that actually the father's going to believe him and not his daughter. And so that also does muddy those waters about like who has the most power in that relationship. Whereas earlier on, it seemed very much like, yeah, Margaret had the power because she had the higher status, and he was sort of just her dupe. But now it's a little bit muddier.
Okay, well, we've had a bit of an interval. Going to go into Act 5, Scene 1. Enter Alphonso, Medice, Lasso, Cortezza above.
Here is the place will do the deed in faith. This duke will show thee how youth puts down age. Aye, and perhaps how youth does put down youth.
I shall see my love in any sort prevented or abused. The abuser dies.
I hope there is no such intent, my liege, for sad as death should I be to behold it.
You must not be too confident, my lord, or in your daughter, or in them that guard her. The prince is politic and envies his father, and though not for himself nor any good intended to your daughter, yet because he knows would kill his father, he would seek her.
They come.
Enter Bassiolo, Vincentio, and Margaret.
Come, meet me boldly, come. Let them come from hunting when they dare.
Has the best spirit.
Spirit? What, a plague eye shall a man feel capricious? You, forsooth, must have your love come to you. When he comes, then you grow shamefaced. He must not touch you, but, fie, my father comes, and, oh, my aunt. 'Tis a witty hearing, if not, think you?
Nay, pray thee, do not mock her, gentle friend.
Nay, you are even as wise a wooer too. She turned from you, even let her turn. You say you do not love to force a lady, 'tis too much rudeness. God save it. What's a lady? Must she not be touched? What does she copper, think you, and will not bide the touchstone? Kiss her, Vince, and thou dost love me. Kiss her.
Lady, now, I were too simple if I should not offer. And he kisses her.
Oh God, sir, pray away. This man talks idly.
Say you that? Now, by that candle there, were I as Vince's, I would handle you in crufty-tufty wise, in your right kind.
Oh, you have made him a sweet beagle, have you not?
'Tis the most true believer in himself of all that sect of folly. Faith's his fault.
So, to her, Vince, I give thee leave, my lad. Sweet were the words my mistress spake when tears fell from her eyes.
He lies down by them.
Thus as the lion lies before his den, guarding his whelps, and streaks his careless limbs, and when the panther, fox, or wolf comes near, never deigns to rise to fright them hence, but only put forth one of his stern paws, keeps his dear whelps safe as in a hutch. So I present his person and keep mine. Foxes, go by. I put my terror forth.
And he sings.
Let all the world say what they can. Let all the world say what they can. A bargain best she makes, that hath the wit to choose a man to pay for that he takes, and a load of Italian chorus. Dispatch, sweet wealth, above the Duke come straight. Oh, 'tis a grave old lover, the same duke, and choose minions rarely, if you mark him. The noble Medici. Oh, that man, that Bobadilla, that foolish knave, that hose and doublet, stinkard.
Swoons, my lord, let's endure no more.
A little, pray, my lord, for I believe we shall discover very notable knavery.
Alas, how I am grieved and shamed in this.
Never care you, Lord Brother, there's no harm done.
But that sweet creature, my good lord's sister, Madame Cortezza, she, the noblest dame that ever any vein of honour bled, there were a wife now for my lord the duke, had he the grace to choose her. But indeed, to speak her true praise, I must use some study.
Now, truly, brother, I did ever think this man the honestest man that ever you kept.
So, sister, so, because he praises you.
Nay, sir, but you shall hear him further yet.
We're not ahead, sometimes a little light, so an apt for matter of much weight. She were the fittest and worthiest dame to leap a window and break her neck that ever was.
God's pity! Horrid knave, I ever thought him a dissembling varlet.
Well, now, my hearts, be wary, for by this I fear the Duke is coming. I'll go watch and give you warning. Commend me to you.
Exit Bassiolo. Oh, fine phrase.
And very timely used.
What now, sweet life, shall we resolve upon? We never shall enjoy each other here.
Direct you then, my lord, what we shall do. For I am at your will, and will endure with you the cruelest absence from the state we both were born to that can be supposed.
That would extremely grieve me. Could myself only endure the ill our hardest fates may lay on both of us, I would not care. But to behold thy sufferance, I should die.
How can your lordship wrong my love so much, to think the more woe I sustain for you breeds not the more my comfort? I, alas, have no mean else to make my merit even in any measure with your eminent worth.
Enter Bassiolo.
Now must I exercise my timorous lovers like fresh-armed soldiers with some false alarms to make them yare and wary of their foe. The boisterous bearded Duke. I'll rush upon them with the most hideous cry, "The Duke! The Duke! The Duke!"
Yeah, Vincentio and Margaret run out.
Come again, I say. The Duke's not come, i'faith.
Enter Vincentio and Margaret. God's precious man, what did you mean to put us in this fear?
Sir, to make you look about you the more. We must teach you more of this, I tell you. Can you be too safe, sir? What, I say, must you be pampered in your vanities? I do domineer. I rule the roost.
Exit Bassiolo.
Was ever such an ingle? Would to God, if 'twere not for ourselves, my father saw him.
Minion, you have your prayer and my curse for your good huswifery.
What says your highness? Can you endure these injuries any more?
No more, no more. Advise me what is best to be the penance of my graceless son.
My lord, no mean but death or banishment can be fit penance for him if you mean to enjoy the pleasure of your love yourself.
Give him plain death, my lord, and then you're sure.
Death or his banishment he shall endure, for wreak of that joy's exile I sustain. Come, call our guard and apprehend him straight.
Exeunt Alphonso, Lasso, Medice, and Cortezza. I have some jewels, then, my dearest life, which, with whatever we can get beside, shall be our means, and we will make escape. Enter Bassiolo running.
Oh, Sir Blood the Duke! Oh, come now in earnest, the Duke! By heaven, the Duke!
Nay, then, i'faith, your jest is too stale.
God's precious! By these 10 bones and by this hat and heart, the Duke and all comes, we are cast away!
Exeunt Bassiolo and Vincentio. Enter Alphonso, Medici, Lasso, Cortezza, and Julio.
Lay hands upon them all! Pursue! Pursue!
Who's Lasso?
Stay, thou ungracious girl.
Lord Medice, lead you our guard and see you apprehend the treacherous boy, nor let him escape with life, unless he yield his eternal exile.
'Tis princely said, my lord.
Exit Medici.
And take my usher.
Let me go into exile with my lord. I will not live if I be left behind.
Impudent damsel, wouldst thou follow him?
He is my husband. Whom else should I follow?
Wretch, thou speakest treason to my lord the Duke.
Of me, lady, and I pardon all.
I have a husband and must love none else.
Despiteful dame, I'll disinherit him, and thy good father here shall cast off thee, and both shall feed on air, or starve and die.
If this be justice, let it be our dooms. If free and spotless love in equal years with honours unimpaired deserves such ends, let us approve what justice is in friends.
You shall, I swear. Sister, take you her close into your chamber, lock her fast alone, and let her stir, nor speak with anyone.
He shall not, brother. Come, niece, come with me.
Heaven save my love, and I will suffer gladly.
Exeunt Cortezza and Margaret.
Haste, Julio, follow thou my son's pursuit, and will Lord Medici not to hurt nor touch him, but either banish him or bring him back. Charge him to use no violence to his life.
I will, my lord.
Exit Julio.
Nature, how, alas, art thou and reason thy true guide opposed? More vain thou takest to guide sense led amiss than being guided. Reason gives thee bliss.
And exeunt. I suppose it's not Julio, it's probably more Julio, isn't it? So we've just had an episode of The Usher Who Cried Duke. It's a nice get. You can see it a mile off as well, and that's what made it so much fun as well. You know, oh, he's playing with them, he's joshing with them. Oh, yeah, your joke is stale. No, it's really real this time. Oh shit. The note I made through all of Bassiolo's singing and stuff, and the various people listening and overhearing, I've just got the note of what are V&M doing all this while. And I'm just sort of wondering, is there a bush that sort of starts swaying, or something, you know? And I don't know how far you can push it, because obviously everybody else is watching. So, but it's just an interesting question about what's going on here, because I think that could actually be really quite. Because it's a serious question. What are they doing? I mean, I suppose they could just be rolling around in a slightly more chaste fashion. But I don't know, because they don't say anything for a really long time, and while he's doing his thing, so that they need to be doing something, or some sort of logic there. Sarah, then somebody Aliki.
I don't know if you could take it as far as the bush actually rocking, but I think what would be really funny would be if he's lying down, isn't he? Yeah. Next to them. Is he kind of, so they're sort of like together, and then he's on one side of one of them. He's not in the middle between them. So it would be quite funny if they were just like engaged in some like seriously heavy petting while he's singing, and then like every so often he turns around and looks at them, and they stop and smile at him. Yeah. And then he's just like la 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 la, and off they go, and then he turns around and looks at them again, and they just immediately stop and smile at him again. I just think that, I mean, that could go on forever. That's just, that's just so entertaining. I just wanted to say though, I think that scene is probably has just leapt to the top of like my favorite scene in any play that we've done. I just absolutely loved it. It was so hilarious. Yeah, and it's really funny because we had the stakes have been upped. Alphonso has turned out to be this really beastly father who is okay, he's not going to have his son murdered, but he's still exiled, yeah, and he's still like leching after the young girl, and in spite of the fact that everyone keeps pointing out to him how deeply inappropriate this is, in spite of the fact that the stakes have been raised, it's just the comedy just like just carries all before it. It was just the most brilliant scene, I thought.
Yeah, it's and also just the straightforward irony of people talking about other people, and the Cortezza bit where she's going, "Oh, I'll listen to a bit more of this. This is going well for me," and then of course immediately that he's going to say something rude about her, and it's just the worst thing ever. Aliki, then Stephen.
Maybe it's because I was reading Cortezza, but I think her prurience is so extreme that if things had gotten to the bush-rocking level, we would know. I'm not saying she did a full gynecological examination there, but she has seen that clothes are still in place. It's okay, no harm got done, brother.
Fair enough. Stephen?
It's a tiny point. It may not signify anything at all, but Margaret refers to Bassiolo as an ingle, which is a passive male homosexual, or or a twink or some such kind of early modern equivalent. And I just wondered about that, whether it's just a generic insult or whether that gives a little bit more point to some of those scenes. And I can't remember when we did it, but there was the kind of subordination scene, wasn't there, between Vincentio and Bassiolo, which you certainly could add a bit of depth in there if you wanted to, taking that as a cue. But equally, it could just be a throwaway generic insult, couldn't it?
I don't know if that problematizes everything rather than it might get in the way of the comedy of it all, because it.
Then definitely would. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
It'd make it a much darker play.
Yes, if you want that.
Yeah, which I suppose that we've Sarah was making this point. That actually this play could go in lots of different directions in terms of where you place the tone and layer the comedy over things. So yeah, that layer may be there, or certainly could be made to be there. I think that's a good point. Any other thoughts before we go into our next scene? We're rattling towards a climax, as it were.
In that time,
been somewhat interrupted. Sarah.
I was really interested by what Stephen said there, because I thought Ingle was a cousin. Have I got that completely wrong there? Because I thought that line was interesting too, but for entirely different reasons. The fact that she called him an Ingle, I thought, is he actually somehow related to the family? So he's like more of like a steward who is a
cousin
relation.
On the other side.
Yeah, exactly. Because I thought Ingle was cousin, but I mean, actually, like Stephen probably knows way better than I do. Because maybe I got that wrong.
Alan. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
back to Stephen, then Alan.
I've just looked on the OED, and it's only got sexual connotations for men.
Alan.
We've had Ingle in other plays, and it's turned up as being the friend with whom you sit in the Ingle nook. So a close buddy.
Yeah.
Whether there's any sexual content to that we hadn't explored previously, but Stephen's obviously found references that support a slightly heavier.
No, I stand corrected, Alan. Yes, you're quite right. Yes, close or dear friend frequently as term of affection as well. It's usually used as a sexual partner sense, but it certainly does have that meaning too.
Yeah, I mean, it would be quite easy to pay Bassiolo as being, in today's terms, somewhat camp.
I mean, it's because Margaret has that line. You've made him a sweet beagle as well. That he's very attentive and following and eager and pointy-taily. So yeah, there's all sorts of questions that's now bringing up about how that character is represented and the traps that might also ensue if we fall for them. Sarah.
I do remember saying when we did that first scene, which I think was on day one with Vincentio, that he had a massive crush on him. So actually, that would fit. Actually, yeah, it would add an extra layer of complexity.
Okay, well, we have some interesting questions. We'll see whether we get more data as we go into Act 5, Scene 2. Enter Cynanche, the doctor, and Scylla. Strozza having the arrowhead in his hand.
Now see, good doctor, 'twas no frantic fancy that made my tongue presage the head should fall out of my wounded side the 7th day. but an inspired rapture of my mind, submitted and conjoined in patience to my Creator, in whom I foresaw, like to an angel, this divine event.
Oh, is it plain, and happily approved in a right Christian precedent, confirming what a most sacred medicine patience is, that with the high thirst of our soul's clear fire exhausts corporeal humour and all pain, casting our flesh off while we it retain.
Make some religious vow then, my dear lord, and keep it in the proper memory of so celestial and free a grace.
Sweet wife, thou restest my good angel still, suggesting by all means these ghostly counsels. Thou weariest not thy husband's patient ears with motions for new fashions in attire, for change of jewels, pastimes, and nice cates, nor studiest eminence and the higher place amongst the consorts like all the other dames. But knowing more worthy objects appertain to every woman that desires to enjoy a blessed life in marriage, thou contemnest those common pleasures and pursuest the rare, using thy husband in those virtuous gifts for which thou first did choose him, and thereby cloyest not with him, but lovest him endlessly. In reverence of thy motion, then, and zeal to that most sovereign power that was my cure, I make a vow to go on foot to Rome, and offer humbly in St. Peter's temple this fatal arrowhead, which work let none judge a superstitious rite, but a right use proper to this peculiar instrument, which, visibly resigned to memory through every eye that shall see, will stir my soul to gratitude and progress in the use of my tried patience, which in my power ending. My power ending would not shut the example out of future lives, nor act as superstitious that applies all power to God, devoting hearts through eyes.
Spoke with the true tongue of a nobleman. But now are all these excitations toys, and honour fats his brain with other joys. I know your true friend, Prince Vincentio, will triumph in this excellent effect of your late prophecy.
Oh, my dear friend's name presents my thoughts with a most mortal danger to his right innocent life. A monstrous fact is now effected on him.
Where or how?
I do not well those circumstances know, but am assured the substance is too true. Come, Reverend Doctor, let us hearken out where the young prince remains, and bear with you medicines to allay his danger, if by wounds. Bear precious balsam, or some sovereign juice, if by fell poison, some choice antidote. If by black witchcraft, our good spirits and prayers shall exorcise the devilish wrath of hell out of his princely bosom.
And enter Poggio running.
Where's my lord uncle? My lord, my uncle.
Here's the ill tidings bringer. What news now with thy unhappy presence?
My lord Vincentio. It's almost killed by my lord Medice.
See, doctor, see if my presage be true. As well I know if he have hurt the prince, 'tis treachery done, or with some help.
Nay, sure, he had no help, but all the duke's guard, and they set upon him, indeed. And after he had defended himself, do you see, he drew, and having as good as wounded the Lord Medici almost, he struck at him, and missed him. Do you mark?
What tale is here? Where is this mischief done?
At Monkswell, my lord. I'll guide you to him presently.
I doubt it not. Fools are the best guides to ill, and mischief's ready way lies open still. Lead, sir, I pray.
And they exit. So Strozza was indeed empowered by magical forces to see into the future. All hail the powers of Strozza. I mean, there's an interesting question, because Strozza doesn't know precisely what bad thing was going to happen to Vincentio. He just says, I know it's some bad things. Get some preparations to sort out the bad things, because it could be anything. He doesn't know what it is. Just get an all-purpose kit. And then Poggio comes on. And what I really like about Poggio's entrance here is we get the information. We don't have to have had a separate scene with Vincentio being captured. but we get this sort of comedy version that this guy acts out for us. So we get all of the impetus, we get the information without having to bring Vincentio on and capture and all this stuff, which in a tragedy might be interesting, but in a comedy would just probably be a bit tedious. So I quite like that moves that on. But yeah, Strozza does a long speech. Briony.
So
Just come
Strozza's
on.
basically just mansplained this arrowhead out of himself then. That's what we're going with, yeah?
Yeah.
Credible.
Yeah. That's what he's done. Yeah, that's what he's done. The power of mansplaining compels you. Aliki.
You get the impression that's sort of what Strozza does. Practically every time he opens his mouth, it's a 20-line speech.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That seems to be the comedy gist for him, isn't it? It's his gist is that he just comes on and he just does a ridiculously over-the-top speech every single time. And I mean, I'd probably trim his massively long speech back a bit. I think we need to just get the gist of it. We don't need necessarily all of it. I just quite like the idea that every so often his wife just hits him on the head and he just reboots. Because at this point it's like he's just a walking speak your weight machine, isn't he? Sarah.
I was thinking to myself, oh, the fact that he turns out to be right, the fact that he does seem to genuinely have this sudden power of prophecy, like, oh, this opens us up for doing something very hilarious in an earlier scene, that, you know, because there are no stage directions, we can kind of put in something where magical powers are somehow unexpectedly conferred upon him. But in actual fact, we don't need to do that because Briony's just explained what it was. He just mansplained himself into a magical cure.
Okay, I don't think we need to say any more there. I think we've got that one licked. Okay, let's go into Act 5, Scene 3. The other nice thing about Poggio coming in there is we have drawn the 2A and the B plot together now, so that's quite nice. We're moving towards the close of a play. Structurally, again, I like this scene. Anyway, Act 5, Scene 3. Enter Cortezza and Margaret above.
Quiet yourself, niece. Though your love be slain, you have another that's worth two of him.
It is not possible. It cannot be that heaven should suffer such impiety.
'Tis true, I swear, niece.
Almost unjust truth. I'll cast myself down headlong from this tower and force an instant passage for my soul to seek the wandering spirit of my lord.
Will you do so, niece? That I hope you will not. And yet, there was a maid in St. Mark's Street, for such a matter did so, and all her clothes flew up about her, so she had no harm, and grace of God, your clothes may fly up too, and save you harmless, for your cause and hers are e'en as like as can be.
I would not scape. And certainly I think the death is easy.
Oh, 'tis the easiest death that ever there was. Look, niece, it is so far hence to the ground, you should be quite dead, long before you felt it. Yet do not leave, niece.
I will kill myself with running on some sword or drink strong poison, which death is easiest, I would fain endure.
Sure Cleopatra was of the same mind and did so. She was honoured ever since. Yet do not you so, niece?
Wretch that I am! My heart is soft and faint and trembles at the very thought of death, though thoughts tenfold more grievous do torment it. I'll feel death by degrees, and first deform this my accursed face with ugly wounds. That was the first cause of my dear love's death.
Oh, that were a cruel deed. Yet Adelasia in Petty's palace of petted pleasure for all the world with such a knife as this cut off her cheeks and nose, and was commended more than all the dames that kept their faces whole.
Margaret seizes the knife and offers to cut her face.
Oh, do not cut it!
Fie on my faint heart. It will not give my hand the wished strength. Behold the just plague of a sensual life that, to preserve itself in reason's spite and shun death's horror, feels it 10 times more. Unworthy women! Why do men adore our fading beauties when, their worthiest lives being lost for us, we dare not die for them? Hence, hapless ornaments that adorned this head, disorder ever these enticing curls, and leave my beauty like a wilderness that never man's eye more may dare to invade.
I'll tell you, niece, and yet I will tell you not a thing that I desire to have you do, but I will tell you only what you might do, because I would pleasure you in all I could. I have an ointment here which we dames use to take off hair when it does grow too low upon our foreheads, and that for a need, if you should rub it hard upon your face, would blister it, make it look most vividly.
Oh, give me that, aunt.
Give it you, virgin. Oh, that were well indeed. Shall I be thought to tempt you to such matters?
None of my face shall know it. Gentle aunt, bestow it on me, and I'll ever love you.
God's pity. But you shall not spoil your face.
I will not then, indeed.
Why then, niece, take it, but you will swear you shall not.
No, I swear.
She seizes the box and rubs her face with the ointment.
Oh, do you force it from me? Oh, gods, my dear, will you misuse your face so all over? Nay, if you be so desperate, I'll be gone.
Exit Cortezza.
Fade, hapless beauty. Turn the ugliest face that ever Ethiop or frightful fiend showed in the amazed eye of profaned light. See, precious love, thou be yet in air and canst break darkness and the strongest towers with thy dissolved intellectual powers. See, a worse torment suffered for thy death than if it had extended his black force in sevenfold horror to my hated life. Smart, precious ointment, smart, and to my brain sweat thy envenomed fury. Oh, make my eyes burn with thy sulphur like the lakes of hell, that fear of me may shiver him to dust that eat his own child with the jaws of lust.
Exit. So yeah, it's a comedy. Yeah, that went dark. A little bit of casual racism there, and the white-black beauty standard. But that's a trimmable issue. Whereas I think the rest of the scene, wow, where did that come from? I mean, all sorts of stuff to unpack there. I mean, is Cortezza doing some sort of cunning trick, or is this real? I mean, and beyond what it's saying about the society at the time, what an odd scene. This is the penultimate scene. I mean, there's not much left of the play. This is quite a scene to throw at us. I don't know where we're going with this. I don't know how the play's going to end now. This is throwing me a massive curveball. Lynn.
So this is sounding familiar now. I think I've seen this trope. She disfigures herself, appears before the Duke. He's like, "Ew, you're ugly now. I reject you." Vincentio's there and he says, "I love you anyway. I want to marry you." She says, "Oh no," but they get married or whatever. They're betrothed. They're promised, because the Duke says, "Oh, I don't want you anymore." And then it turns out the effect is temporary, and she's beautiful again. I've heard this before.
We've had something similar in Jack Drum's Entertainment, but it wasn't a self-inflicted scarring, because we had the vitriol thrown in the face of the lovers by the evil nasty man, and it's all, I think, magically sorted out at the end. But I'm fully expecting Strozza to turn up and mansplain it away, and it'll all be fine. Sarah.
That's exactly what I was just about to say. Like, I do feel that this was real, because that thing where she's saying smart, and and the venom and the burn with thy sulphur. I think this could actually be a really quite horrible scene, and I think it's meant to be real, because that speech that she has where she says all that, she's on her own. So I think if this was a trick, she wouldn't that structure wouldn't occur, but that's the soliloquy, and I think she is genuinely disfiguring herself here and in a lot of pain. But it's all fine because I'm expecting Strozza to cast his magic verbiage and just magically put her face back together.
Briony, then Stephen.
I was just going to say, whatever happens, it's okay, because Strozza can come and mansplain it away.
Yeah, Stephen.
With my historical head on, I'm just really curious as how they did this. Whether it was just grabs a mirror and tries to make us believe, or whether there is something in the box that, she effectively applies, or he, I guess, because it's boy players, isn't it? Or probably, it's definitely a boy player. Almost applies somehow some new makeup on stage over that sort of fairly neutral white base. Or there might even be something about the base which maybe it's sticky or something like that, and you have a box of Rice Krispies or something. But I'm really curious that the transformation, because it seems to really need to really happen before our eyes on stage. And I wonder how they did it, or how we do it.
Alan, then Aliki.
Well, I think modern day, a palm full of Leishner number 9 would probably get the desired effect.
I mean, it might be that she turns away to apply it, and so wants it, and then turns around, or something. I mean, I think there are ways and ways. Aliki.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could do it fairly simply by hiding the face and just putting some ochre or whatever that they had at the time for such uses on. But I'm intrigued by Cortezza and her jealousy of her niece that has appeared throughout the play. I don't think she's deliberately saying, go on, kill yourself. But it does kind of slip out all the time, doesn't it? Wow.
That it's not conscious, that she doesn't know she's doing what she's doing, but she's doing it because she keeps saying, oh, you won't disfigure yourself with the thing I've just offered you, you won't cut your face with this knife that I've just been talking about, you won't do this, will you? No, of course I won't. And it's like, come on.
The only thing that
kidding?
Makes me think she might be doing it on purpose is after she gives her the jar, she says, oh, you took it away from me. And then all of a sudden that gets really dark.
And also Cortezza is now, in my mind, starting to look like a figure from Brazil. There's the various cosmetic treatments that go on there, and it's now creating an image for Cortezza, because she does talk about this ointment here, which we dames use to take off hair when it does grow too low upon our foreheads, and that's an interesting. Is that a euphemism for what are we talking about here?
I thought it might be a 3-part one, and my take on it was mustache bleaching cream or something relatively mild to take off hair when it grows too low up upon our foreheads.
Yeah. But they did have. Has it passed by now, or because certainly in earlier years wasn't there something to do with a sort of receding hairline as a sort of odd beauty thing? I don't know what period that is. I don't think that's
earlier. It was a medieval thing.
Yeah. So maybe it's an illusion.
But having a low forehead was considered unattractive. So a high forehead was still considered attractive.
It was a medieval thing. In medieval art, everyone's got foreheads up here. But I mean, it did go on, like, because Rita Hayworth had electrolysis on her forehead to take her hairline up. And that was like, 1930 something. So it was going on a long time.
Anyway, we have one more scene to do. It's reasonably chunky, but I think we'll take it all in one go. Let's unless something leaps out at me just going, whoa, we'll stop here. We're probably all going to talk to ourselves at some point, because everybody turns up in this scene. Act 5, Scene 4, enter Alphonso, Lasso, and others.
I wonder how far they pursued my son, that no return of him or them appears. I fear some hapless accident is chanced, that makes the news so loath to piece mine ears.
High heaven, vouchsafe no such effect succeed those wretched causes that from my house flow, but that in harmless love all acts may end.
Enter Cortezza.
What shall I do? Alas, I cannot rule my desperate niece. All her sweet face is spoiled, and I dare keep her prisoner no more. No. Here she comes, frantic and all undressed.
Enter Margaret.
Tyrant, behold how thou hast used thy love. See, thief to nature, thou hast killed and robbed. Killed what myself killed, robbed what makes thee poor. Beauty, her lover's treasure, thou hast lost where none can find it. All a poor maid's dower thou hast forced from me. All my hope, all my joy and hope. No man will love me more. All dames excel me. This ugly thing is now no more a face, nor any vile form in all earth resemble but thy foul tyranny, for which all the pains two faithful lovers feel that thus are parted. All joys they may have felt turn all to pains. All a young virgin thinks she does endure to lose her love and beauty on thy heart be heaped and pressed down till thy soul depart.
Enter Julio.
Haste, liege, your son is dangerously hurt. Lord Medici, condemning your command by me delivered as your highness willed, set on him with your guard, who struck him down, and then the coward lord with mortal wounds and slavish insolency ploughed up his soft breast, which barbarous fact in part is laid on you for first enjoining it, and foul exclaims in pity of your son your subjects breathe gainst your unnatural fury, amongst whom the good Lord Strozza desperately raves, and vengeance for his friends' injustice craves. Just see where he comes, burning in zeal of friendship.
Enter Strozza, Vincentio brought in a chair, the doctor, Poggio, Cynanche with a guard, and Medici.
Good timing. Where is this tyrant? Let me strike his eyes into his brain with horror of an object. See, pagan Nero, see how thou hast ripped thy better bosom, rooted up that flower from whence thy now spent life should spring anew, and in him killed that would have bred thee flesh, thy mother and thy father.
Good friend, cease.
What hag with child of monster would have nursed such a prodigious longing? But a father would rather eat the brawn out of his arms than glut the mad worm of his wild desires with his dear issue's entrails.
Honoured friend, he is my father and he is my prince, in both whose rights he may command my life.
What is a father? Turn his entrails gulfs to swallow his children when he have begot them? And what's a prince? Had all been virtuous men, there never had been prince upon the earth, and so no subject. All men had been princes. A virtuous man is subject to no prince, but to his soul and honor, which are laws that carry fire and sword within themselves, never corrupted, never out of rule. What is there in a prince that his least lusts are valued than the lives of other men, when common faults in him should prodigies be, and his gross dotage rather loathed than soothed?
How thick and heavily my plagues descend, not giving my mazed powers a time to speak. Pour more rebuke upon me, worthy lord, for I have guilt and patience for them all. Yet no, dear son, I did forbid thy harm. This gentleman can witness, whom I sent with all command of haste to interdict this forward man in mischief not to touch thee. Did I not, Julio, utter naught but truth?
All your guard heard, my lord. I gave their charge with loud and violent iterations, after all which Lord Medici cowardly hurt him.
He did, my princely lord.
Believe then, son, and know me pierced as deeply with thy wounds, and pardon, virtuous lady, that have lost the dearest treasure, property, or sex. By me, it seems, by my unhappy means. O would to God I could, with present cure of these unnatural wounds, and moaning right of this Mused beauty, join you both, as laughed I left you, in eternal nuptials.
My lord, I know the malice of this man, not your unkind consent have used us thus. And since I make no doubt I shall survive these fatal dangers, and your grace is pleased to give free course to my unwounded love, 'tis not this outward beauty's ruthful loss can any thought discourage my desires. And therefore, dear life, do not wrong me so to think my love the shadow of your beauty. I woo your virtues, which, as I am sure, no accident can alter or impair. So be you certain, naught can change my love.
I know your honourable mind, my lord, and will not do it that unworthy wrong to let it spend her forces in contending, spite of your sense, to love me thus deformed. Love must have outward objects to delight him, else his content will be too grave and sour. It is enough for me, my lord, you love, and that my beauty's sacrifice redeemed my sad fear of your slaughter. You first loved me closely for beauty, which, being withered thus, your love must fade. When the most needful rites of fate and nature have dissolved your life, and that your love must needs be all in soul, then will we meet again. And then, dear love, love me again. For then will beauty be of no respect with love's eternity.
Nor is it now. I wooed your beauty first, but as a lover. Now as a dear husband, that title and your virtues bind me ever.
Alas, that title is of little force to stir up men's affections. When wives want outward excitements, husbands' loves grow scant.
Assist me, heaven and art. Give me your mask. Open, thou little storehouse of great nature. Use an elixir drawn through 7 years' fire, that like Medea's cauldron can repair the ugliest loss of living temperature. And for this princely pair of virtuous turtles, be lavish of thy precious influence, lady, to tone your honourable strife, and take all let from your love's tender eyes. Let me forever hide this stain of beauty with this recureful mask.
Putting a mask on Margaret's face.
Here be it fixed with painless operation of itself, your beauty having brooked 3 days' eclipse, like a dissolved cloud it shall fall off, and your fair looks regain their freshest rays. So shall your princely friend, if heaven consent, in twice your suffered date renew recure. Let me then have the honour to conjoin your hands, conformed to your constant hearts.
Brave Benevemus, honourable doctor, on whose most sovereign Escapedian hand fame with her richest miracle attends, be fortunate as ever heretofore, that we may quite thee both with gold and honour, and by thy happy means have power to make my son and his much injured love amends, whose well-proportioned choice we now applaud, and bless all those that ever furthered it. Where is your discreet usher, my good lord, the special furtherer of this equal match?
Brought after by a couple of your guard.
Let him be fetched, that we may do him grace.
I'll fetch him, my lord. Away you must not go. Oh, here he comes.
Enter Bassiolo, doubling issues here will abide, but enter Bassiolo guarded.
Oh, Master Usher, I'm sorry for you. You must presently be chopped in pieces. Woe to that wicked prince that ere I saw him. Oh, come, I gull you, Master Usher. You are like to be the Duke's minion, man. Do you think I would have been seen in your company had you been out of favour? Here's my friend, Master Usher, my lord.
Give me your hand, friend. Pardon us, I pray. We have much wronged your worth, as one that knew the fitness of this match above ourselves.
Sir, I did all things for the best, I swear. And you must think I would not have been gulled. I know what's fit, sir, as I hope you now know. Sweet Vince, how farest thou? Be of honoured cheer?
Vince, does he call him? Oh, fool, dost thou call the prince Vince, like his equal?
Oh, my lord, alas! You know not what has passed twixt us two. Here in thy bosom I will lie, sweet Vince, and die if thou die. I protest by heaven.
I know not what this means.
Nor I, my lord, but sure he saw the fitness of the match, with freer and more noble eyes than we.
I saw that as well as he, my lord. I knew 'twas a foolish match between you two. Did you not think so, my lord Vincentio, lord uncle? Did not I say at first of the duke, will his antiquity never leave his iniquity?
Go too much of this, but ask this lord if he did like it.
Who, my lord Medice?
Lord Stinkard, man, his name is. Ask him. Lord Stinkard, did you like the match, say?
My lord Stinker, did you like the match between the Duke and my lady Margaret?
Presumptuous sycophant, I will have thy life.
And he draws.
Unworthy lord, put up. Thirst thou more blood? Thy life is fittest to be called in question for thy most murderous cowardice on my son. Thy forwardness to every cruelty calls thy pretended nobleness in suspect.
Noblesse, my lord, set by your princely favor that gave the luster to his painted state, whoever viewed him but with deep contempt as reading vileness in his very looks. And if he prove not soon of some base drudge, trimmed up by fortune, being disposed to jest and dally with your state, then the good angel that by divine relation spake in me, foretelling these foul dangers to your son, and without notice brought this reverend man to rescue him from death, now fails my tongue, and I'll confess I do him open wrong. And so thou dost, and I return all note of infamy or baseness on thy throat. Damn me, my lord, if I be not a lord. My liege, with all desert, even now you said his life was duly forfeit for the death, which in these barbarous wounds he sought your son. Vouchsafe me then his life in my friend's death. For many ways I know he merits death, which if you grant will instantly appear, and that I feel with some rare miracle.
His life is thine, Lord Strozza. Give him death.
What, my lord, will your grace cast away an innocent life? Villain, thou liest. Thou guilty art of death 100 ways, which now I'll execute. Recall your words, my lord.
Not for the world.
Oh, my dear lord, but that my spirit prophetic hath inward feeling of such sins in him as ask the forfeit of his life and soul, I would, before I took his life, give leave to his confession and penitence. Oh, he would tell you of most notorious wonders, of his most impious state, but life and soul must suffer for it in him, and my hand forbidden is from heaven to let him live, till by confession he may have forgiveness. Die, therefore, monster.
Oh, be not so uncharitable, sweet friend. Let him confess his sin and ask heaven pardon.
He must not, princely friend. It is heaven's justice to plague his life and soul, and here's heaven's justice.
And Strozza draws.
Oh, save my life, my lord!
Hold, good Lord Strozza. Let him confess the sins that heaven hath told you and ask forgiveness.
Let me, good my lord, and I'll confess what you accuse me of. Wonders indeed, and full of damned deserts. I know it, and I must not let thee live to ask forgiveness.
You shall, my lord, or I will take his life out of your hand.
A little then I am content, my liege. Is thy name Medice? No, my noble lord. My true name is Medice. Medice! See, at first a mighty scandal done to honor. Of what country art thou? Of no country I, but born upon the seas, my mother passing twixt Zant and Venice. Where wert thou christened? I was never christened, but being brought up with beggars called Medice.
Strange and unspeakable.
How camest thou then to bear that port thou didst entering the court? My lord, when I was young, being able-limbed, a captain of the gypsies entertained me, and many years I lived a loose life with them. At last, I was so favored that they made me the king of the gypsies, and being told my fortune by an old sorceress that I should be great in some great prince's love, I took the treasure which all that company of gypsies had in many years of several stealths collected, and leaving them in wars, I lived abroad with no less show than any now. And my last wrong I did the noblest was in this hot court.
Never was heard so strange a counterfeit.
Didst thou not cause me to be shot in hunting? I did, my lord, for which, for heaven's love, pardon. Now, let him live, my lord. His blood's least drop would stain your court more than the sea could cleanse. His soul's too foul to expire with death, to expiate with death.
Hence, then, be ever banished from my rule, and live a monster, loathed of all the world.
I'll get boys and bait him out the court, my lord.
Do so, I pray thee. Rid me of his sight.
Come on, my lord Stinkard. I'll play. Fox, fox, come out of the hole with you in faith.
I'll run and hide me from the sight of heaven.
Fox, fox, come out of the hole. Two-legged fox, two-legged fox.
And exit with pages beating Medici.
Ever was such an accident disclosed?
Let us forget it, honourable friends, and satisfy all wrongs with my son's right in solemn marriage of his love and him.
I humbly thank your highness. Honoured doctor, the balsam you infused into my wounds have eased me much and given me sudden strength, enough to assure all danger is exempt, that any way may let the general joy my princely father speaks of in our nuptials.
Which, my dear son, shall with thy full recure be celebrating greater majesty than ever graced our greatest ancestry. Then take thy love, which heaven with all journey joys bless, and make ye both mirrors of happiness.
And the play ends. Quite a lot to unpack in that final scene, because it's doing so many things. I have to say, okay, if we're going to have people's terrible disfigurements being repaired, I like the fact it's not an instantaneous cure. It's going to take a few days. The mask's going to have to come off. The fact that it says give me your mask, it suggests that Margaret entered and maybe at some point during her speech tears the mask off and everyone goes ah! And there's a sort of moment in there which is quite problematic, but never mind, we'll come back to that another time. So yeah, I like that. I don't know why Medici tells us about him being the king of the gypsies, and where the hell does that come? I mean, we don't need any of that. I mean, it's so weird.
Yeah.
All he has to do is say, "All right, I confess," and then okay, we'll beat you off stage like some sort of weird game with the pages of the court. It's so random. I'm sort of entertained by it, but I'm also just going, what the hell is going on? This is one of those things when the early modern just throws random stuff at you and you're just going, wow, a lot of random stuff. Okay, Briony, then Stephen, and then Lynn.
It's very boys' company ending. They like really random, and the game thing and the beating is all very boys' company. I'm just wondering who this Ben whatever his name is. Who is
The doctor.
he? Why he's a doctor?
Mm.
Okay, I didn't remember him being a doctor from earlier, but I would have personally found the magical mansplaining more believable than this face mask.
Well, you see, if Benevemus is the doctor is he seems to have an awful lot of really good cures. And so, when he's talking about, it's going to be really difficult to heal you, Strozza, earlier in last session. And I was saying, I'm sure it's not that difficult. I mean, it's a difficult wound to deal with, but I'm sure it's doable. Maybe he was just padding his bill. He's a really good doctor. Actually, you're going to be fine. It's just a scratch. Because he is basically the sort of, Doctor Ex Machina for the end of the play, because he just turns up and heals everybody. Vincentio's brought in a chair and he says, "Oh no, it's okay. It's just a flesh wound." And we get this little bit at the end saying, "Oh yeah, thanks for the balsam that you a bit of Vicks vapor rub and I was fine." So yeah, it's sort of weird. Stephen, then Sarah.
To kind of offer a reply to the earlier point, I wonder if this is, it's a move we've seen before. It's this kind of, well, kids, don't have nightmares. The people who rule over you are actually, great. And if anybody isn't great, then they really shouldn't be there in the first place, should they? Because, hey, there's this guy Medici, right? And I mean, what could sound more noble, but he's actually Mendici. He's a beggar. Yeah. So, but you can just kind of sleep easy on your beds, because everything is under control.
Lynn, then Sarah. Sorry, I forgot Lynn.
Yeah, the whole Medici Mendice thing. Actually, that whole thing is you don't even need it. If the doctor is going to feel like medic ex machina anyway, you could just have him come in at the end, and you could get rid of the Strozza almost getting killed miraculously. You could get rid of all of that. You just happen to have a doctor or a holy man, a holy hermit who happens to be present and says, "I can cure her." And just get rid of all that stuff. And so, but no, we had to stick in this whole long speech from Medici Mendice with, some implied classism and casual racism, because I was raised by gypsies. That made me even worse. I'm not even baptized. It's a little ew.
Yeah, I definitely feel that the tail end of the Medici stuff can go. I mean, we just need him to confess. There's a few lines where he doesn't confess, and then you can get straight to the end. Yeah. I'd like to keep Strozza. I think there's something ridiculous about the character that's so over the top all the way through. The mansplaining is potentially part of a joke there. I wouldn't want to get rid of all of that. I might want to cut it down. Lots of hands going up now. Sarah, then Aliki, Alan, Stephen, Briony.
I agree. You've got to cut a lot of that Medici stuff. I mean, especially if you want to keep the weird thing of him being beaten out with the fox. You can't have that following his little story about being king of the gypsies. It's just all too icky. But I was the doctor. I just think you could make this character not just the sort of Doctor Ex Machina, but you could make him a sorcerer. And actually, because we had that character at the beginning of the play, I was playing on Tuesday, the teacher dude who was just full of ridiculous Latin. You could conflate those characters into one, and you could have him as this sort of weird figure in the court who he just keeps taking on different guises. He's like, one minute he was the pedant, wasn't he? 1 minute he's the pedant, and then he's maybe in the mask as somebody else, and then he appears as the doctor. But actually, you make it really clear from quite early on that he's actually a sorcerer or a fairy, and he sprinkles magic dust over Strozza and gives him the power to prophesy by mansplaining, and he sprinkles the magic dust over Vincentio, and then says in his guise of doctor, "Oh, I'm going to heal your wound," or whatever, and he puts fairy dust on the inside of Margaret's mask or whatever, and it's like he's there all the way through, kind of just watching what goes on in this court, and being not part of the court, but kind of taking on different personas to interfere what's going on. And I think that would actually do something really interesting to the structure of the play, in terms of it would mean you could take the slightly the darker, grimmer aspects of the play even further than you perhaps would be able to otherwise, because then you know that there's this figure there to kind of pull it back.
I don't know if we could, with the text that we've got, we could signify that clearly. I mean, we could definitely double him as the enchanter in the mask. That would work nicely. I don't know whether you can make it mesh with Sarpago from the first session, who does completely disappear. You're absolutely right. He's not really. He disappears after the mask sequence. So there's but then that might be because he is literally doubling as that character, but they don't sort of mesh as characters particularly well. They're so totally different.
Yeah, but if he's taking on different,
but we'd have to do it more than twice. You'd have to have at least three, if not four, to make that read, and otherwise it just feels random. But certainly, I like the idea that maybe he's more of a sorcerer than a doctor, because that would explain the whole Strozza thing that he's actually working him. Anyway, sorry, Aliki, then Stephen, then Alan, or whichever way I was doing it, and then Briony.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to cut Strozza and the doctor, and I wonder if we can salvage quite a bit of the final Medici speech, because if we want to problematize the happy ending, and I kind of do, there's room there for that kind of, oh, you're a citizen of nowhere, are you? You weren't even born on land, you were born on a ship. I don't know, maybe that's the immigrant in me. I kind of want to unpick that a little and rescue the generalized kind of distrust of the wanderer from the overt racism of King of the Gypsies.
Stephen, then Alan, then Briony, then Lynn, then Sarah again. Everybody. Sorry, Stephen.
Well, in defence of Strozza, I think he gets some pretty good lines about tyranny. You know, where who is it? Vincentio says he's my father and my prince. And he goes, "Oh, what kind of father is that?" You know, turns his entrails gulfs to swallow children. What is there in a prince that his least lusts are valued at the lives of other men? That's not in the least prolix, I don't think. I mean, he does do prolix quite a lot, but that speech there and the couple around them do seem to me to land really well. And Alphonso says, "Yeah, you're right. Keep on. You know, I deserve every word you're giving me." So I think it's complicated, isn't it? Because I definitely agree with what people have been saying about me in other places. But at that point, he says absolutely the right thing in absolutely the best way, it seems to me.
Alan.
Yeah, I must admit, right at the end, I am feeling a certain amount of sympathy for Vincentio. He's been condemned to matrimony with a manipulative bitch.
I don't think I could, and also really let's avoid the loaded language. I don't think we can quite go that far with that, because they're all quite manipulative in that sense, and I'm not sure we can lay that. I'll go to Briony, then Lynn, then Sarah.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I don't really understand what the point of the whole Strozza predicting the future bit is, if it's not to set up, you know, the fact that he can mansplain his way out of any situation. I don't know. Like, I'm just not really getting what all of that was achieving.
Well, in a sense, the prophesying. It's interesting because obviously he's there as a supporter for Vincentio. He's there to help assist the way that the thing ends. I think there's a lot to pick out of it as well. The relationship that family unit does in the play is quite interesting. And also, I think there's just something deliberately ridiculous about it all. I think there is just something absurd about what happens to Strozza there. Is just that's enjoyable in of its own right, or is supposed to be. Lynn, then Sarah.
Yeah, I'm going back a bit. I don't know that it would work to try to make the doctor this kind of sorcerer, because when we first see Strozza wounded, the doctor's approach is highly technical. He's not going to, I'm not going to cast a spell and put magic balm in it. I'm going to open the wound up. I'm going to do surgery. I'm going to have to break that rib to pull the arrowhead out. It's highly technical. It's not it's based on skill and experience, not on kind of magic or supernatural forces. It's Strozza who cures himself with supernatural forces. He's the sorcerer, if anybody. So turning Benevemus sorcerer in the end, that's going to be hard to make that seem not show. So yeah, I don't know about that. I think we have to make his cure of Margaret seem medical, seem technical. Like they had that technology. And I mean, I sympathize with Aliki's instinct to try to complicate that ending, but man, this guy is just a bad person. He just wants to kill Strozza because he doesn't like him, and this whole like the one really bad person in the, well, no, Alphonso's kind of a bad person too, but it's just like this really bad guy is also underclass. I would actually tend to make him just another jealous courtier, and it's like, you're a traitor to the nobleness of your class. You're not doing this courtier thing right. Be gone with you. I strip you of your titles. You're banished.
There's something about the defense for the Strozza plot is, of course, it is in connected to this rivalry with Medici and Medici's relationship with Alfonso, and therefore to what happens with Vincentio. I mean, it is all interlinked. It's all a bit of a matrix, and if you start pulling bits out of it, I think the whole play does actually start falling apart. I think there are trims to make, but I don't think if you can excise plot lines, because I think it's just too well structured for that, actually. Even if some plot lines work better than others, I think you just need to give more attention to the one that you find less satisfying. Sarah.
Yes, I disagree with you there, Lynn. I think the fact that he is so technical actually that's a great disguise for magic. It's like if you're just going, "Ooh, magic," that's kind of not what. If he's actually coming in with like this massively, like, because it's really in depth. I mean, that was making me squirm slightly yesterday, because I don't like medical stuff, and I was like, oh, it was so authentic. I think that authenticity is like a really good cover for magic. But that's just my personal take on it. It occurs to me that Julio could be the third, because Julio is the one who comes in, the third sorceress, guys, because he's the one who comes in and I think who reveals what's been going on and kind of starts the whole this needs putting right. That speech is what starts to put things right and reveals what's going on. So that he could be the third sorcerer appearance. And I really liked Aliki's point about Medici's speech. And again, I'm going off down a rabbit hole here, but it occurs to me that actually if you had Benevemus putting some balm on to Vincentio, because I don't think we ever actually see that. We only hear about it afterwards, and it's like, oh, that balm you gave me earlier, that's done wonders for me. If we actually see him do that, you could then cut a load of the Medici stuff. You could have the balm taking effect. You could have Alphonso going, strange and unspeakable. Strozza saying, how camest thou then to bear that port that thou didst entering this court? And then you could give Medici's speech, my lord, when I was young, being able-limbed, to the sorcerer. So he's the king of the gypsies. And you'd want to cut some of it because it wouldn't make sense. But actually you could keep the essence of that speech about, the wanderer who belongs to nowhere, and actually give it to this character who belongs to nowhere, who is actually a benevolent character and has kind of caused the whole plot to work out the way it should in a comedy. I don't know. That's probably what I would do with it.
Well, I think there is an element of actually the way of actually just giving the play its own head of steam and just doing it as writ, warts and all. I mean, the issues with it are actually very minor. I mean, you sort of have to accept. I think on the question of the nature of the doctoring of Benevemus is, any advanced technology eventually starts looking like magic. He's just a very good doctor. And if his cures are slightly magical, well, that's the nature of medicine in those days. If they didn't die, yay! I did it. That's the sort of the way it worked. So
If they did, it's God's will, right?
yeah. So, and that's not to say that it's very much a product of its own time. But I sort of think it does all sort of function well. It's just you just have to sort of run with it to a degree. I don't think you can tweak the edges too much. Maybe the odd cart. And of some of the more egregious stuff. I mean, I'm also thinking about it structurally. Is that it's like some of the plays we looked at a few weeks ago, where the act structure is in as of itself important. That each act is its own unit of action. It is slightly episodic. Because we're talking about the first two acts were about the two masks. Then we have an act which is all about the relationship between the two lovers and the Gentleman Usher. Then we get introduced to to whatever was going on last act, the arrow plot. And then this act, we've got the complication in the wooing and the darkness creeping in. And it's not that it needed to be dark all the way through, but darkness is what this act is doing, and this act is doing a slightly different mood and tone. And I think you sort of need to really make the act structure clear, because actually I think that's actually part of what the play is doing. Weirdly, I think you need to almost make sure that's still marked in production, because I mean it doesn't have a chorus or anything, but it has music cues between acts probably, and that might be important more than individual scenes. Actually, is that each act needs to be thought on that way. Lynn.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. And I think another thing we haven't talked about yet is the way the verse changes. Poggio always talks in prose, and Strozza has his own kind of voice that's a little over the top, and then the courtiers have a certain kind of verse. So I mean, that would be needed to be attended to. And I think you're right about the acts are kind of differentiated between themselves. That's an extra challenge, though, in a contemporary production, a 21st century production, because that's not how we do it. We do it in two halves. And so how do you signal that? Do you actually have like 4 little mini intermissions, one of which is longer than the others? How do you do that for a 21st century audience to help them get in the right mood for what's happening next?
Beyond doing it in a playhouse that has candles that need trimming every 30 minutes. I mean, I think those are all interesting things. I mean, obviously we've got various issues with the sort of the disfigurement plot in the final act. We've got the sort of nature of what's going on there, the miracle cure of it all. That creates all sorts of interesting problems for how it would be received today. But yeah, it's odd because it plays around with tone, and again, that's an early modern thing of what genre is it? Well, it's almost a tragi-comedy.
Yeah,
but definitely. It's not quite. It's not quite there, is it? It's like it doesn't commit to being tragedy before it commits to having a happy ending. It's like there's a lot of comedy, and then it goes, oh, hang on, we just need to crank up the tragedy handle.
Yeah, tragi-comedies typically starts out darker and resolves happily in the end, rather than starting out very light before getting like a little creepy and then kind of working out. Yeah, so.
But yeah, and the fact that we're still discussing it, and we've still probably got an awful lot that we could discuss about this, suggests that it's got legs, because there's ways of interpreting and playing with it that actually every time you revive it, you would come up with something slightly different about how you receive it and how you produce it. Because I'm not sure how to produce it. In a good way. I mean, I know how to produce it in the sense that the script is very clear about what to do. There aren't that many explicit ambiguities about, this bit doesn't make it, or this bit isn't there. I mean, it's all there. It's just some of it's weird. So we hit final thoughts about the play overall. Yeah, I don't think we necessarily have to come up with a final thing. I've genuinely enjoyed it. I'm not saying that there aren't problems with it, but I'm sort of thinking I quite like this for all of its issues, and I'd like to explore more of it. Sarah, any final thoughts?
Yeah, you know me. I like the bonkers plays. And that last scene was completely bonkers. And I just really enjoyed it, actually. And it didn't suffer the curse of the final session. It actually, yeah. I got to the penultimate scene and I'm like, how is this all going to work out? This has taken such a turn. This is like taken such a dark turn. What the hell is going to happen in this final scene? And then it was just like, ta-da! And yeah, it was great. And it does have issues and challenges, but the idea of staging this now and doing something with it to sort out, kind of not sort out that craziness. That implies you'd want to get rid of it. Keep the craziness, but like make it work for a modern audience. I don't think it would take that much, and I just think it would be a really satisfying production.
Alan, any final thoughts?
I must admit that the two plays we've done this week, because it felt to me like the first session was a completely different piece, which I quite enjoyed. But yesterday's session and today's, I've just not got into it. I just can't understand what they're playing at. And it certainly doesn't seem to connect that materially with the first section. The first one was light, cheerful, and then, we get into this rather weird rom-com class warfare type thing, which just didn't work for me.
I think there's an interesting, because I don't think it is class warfare in the way that you mean. I don't think because the nature of class structure is there is a class structure, but it is slightly different to then and here and today. It's true the play is doing different things in the first two acts, but then it's also doing a different thing in Act 3 and a different thing in Act 4 and a different thing in Act 5. I think I'd be really interested to go straight back to the beginning and do the opening again, knowing who these characters are. Because I did not get anything out of Strozza and Poggio and Cynanche in the first scene. I thought, what the hell's this scene doing? And now that I know them, and I sort of know where they're going, and also the introduction of the Gentleman Usher himself, and how his character initially appears to us. Because now that we have some idea who he is, I'm not actually sure we do know who he is actually. And so I'm quite curious to mine some stuff out of that. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a little tired and disengaged this morning, so I don't feel as excited about it as I did the last couple of days. But I love Sarah's idea of let's play up the sort of supernatural possibilities of the guy that cures Margaret in the end, and let's just make him like, oh yeah, he pretends to be a doctor and he can do that too, but really he's magical. That might work. And I really think the way you fix the problem with Medice is you make him highborn but a schemer. He's just bad. He's a bad courtier. We're gonna get rid of him. Bad person. Instead of equating like being lowborn with being a bad person. I wouldn't do that. And the sort of 5-part thing, the thing that occurs to me, I think a really fun way to do this, if we were all billionaires, is that we should make a 5-part Netflix series about it. Just do it in 5 separate episodes on 5 consecutive nights or whatever. So each one can be tonally a little different, and it won't, and that won't matter.
Yeah,
on stage, though, I don't have any answers.
Yeah, I mean, my thinking about the Doctor at the moment is almost just hello, I'm Dr. Plot Device. What are you here for? I'm here to solve the problems at the end of the play. Do you have a character? Probably not. I'm here to function. That might be unfair, but it might also be fair. I'm not sure. Aliki, any final thoughts?
Well, the proof of the comedy is in the laughing, and I've had such a good time all 3 days. I've been muting myself constantly and cackling away. So let's run with this. I want to see what it does.
I think there is an element of wanting to see what the audience response to the various twists and turns of the narrative are. Stephen, any final thoughts?
I think it's written by somebody who really knows what theatre is, which you can't always say. I think in terms of the writing, I think the plotting is great. I think the dialogue is great too. I think it's really, really nicely focused. And I was intrigued. I think Alan's point is, or maybe an extension of Alan's point, the centre of gravity, is actually somebody, a figure in society who is, either before this is either, a kind of random plot device, nurse or whatever, or they're an idiot and they bring the wrong pie back, or they want to, kill and or sleep with the lord and or lady of the house. And at the centre of this play, if we imagine at the centre of this play the Gentleman Usher, then I think that gives us a really, really intriguing kind of play. And I'm struggling to think of a play which doesn't have a sort of, scary, revengeful servant that gives so much care to trying to put us in that servant's position. And I think this play really does do that. Whether you think, it's light, or whether you think it's dark, whether you think, where our sympathies might be going, or where they might be oscillating. But I think that makes a really, really interesting play for me, as well as a really, really well-written, well put together, highly theatrical piece.
Yes, we haven't really talked about actually the conclusion of the Gentleman Usher's plot, because actually, in a sense, he does slightly peter out in the final act. He does pop in, and there is, and it's not this awful humiliation for him. Yes, he does call Vincentio Vince in front of his master, and it's only his master who goes, "You're calling him Vince?" And it's not that sort of gross humiliation that he could have been put under, and he, he's brought in at the end. But he's not really engaged with that final act of the play. And it's that question again about titles. Does the title, The Gentleman Usher, as opposed to a title like, Margaret and Vincentio or something like that, does that, what does the title change to our sense of the centre of gravity of the play? Because it might actually be misleading, but it also might not. It depends also how quickly that final act moves in terms of stage time. To how it receives and how focused we are on him. Briony, any final thoughts? I can tell your disappointment in Strozza. I can feel it from here.
I didn't dislike it, and it's had some really great moments, but I'm not sure personally that I fully understood this play and what it was trying to do. Because for me, they kind of build stuff up, and then it goes nowhere a little. I don't know. It felt a bit repeatedly anticlimactic in that sense for me. Like the whole Strozza predicting the future, it was just a thing that happened for a bit and came to nothing. The whole gulling of the servant, like they did it for a bit and then naturally it was all okay. I don't know. It's an odd one. And like I say, I've not enjoyed it, but I haven't always been with it.
Okay, well, any other thoughts to throw in before I close the session? Because we have run out of time. Well, I haven't actually. We've got a few minutes left, actually. But hey, as far as I'm concerned, we've run out of time. Unless anyone waves at me, I'll close the session now. So all that remains is to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Die, therefore, monster!